So let me first introduce Hans-Joachim Mosler, our main speaker this afternoon. He is the founder of RANAS Mosler and senior advisor for RANAS Ltd. He has headed the environmental and health psychology group at EABAC for more than 15 years. And his experiences in the implementation of behavioral change projects that range from drinking water treatment and storage to hygiene and sanitation behavior, environmental behavior, and much more. He has published this RANAS approach to behavioral change in 2012. And recently he was also interviewed by Swiss television due to the Corona crisis and the topic of behavior change that I think all of us were somehow affected by it. Yeah. Also, I want to introduce Mikael Amsing, who most of you know. He's the coordinator of institutional partnerships from Interaction. And he is, as Interaction, we have this partnership with RANAS and with 3 organizations from Interaction. Mikael is leading some behavior change studies based on this RANAS model, and we're trying as one approach and one contribution to find out how behavior change happens, and also how we could support the members in their projects and in their work. So again, welcome everyone, and I would hand it over now to Hans-Joachim Mosler to lead us. More or less the time will be an hour, more or less 50 minutes interactively with you, and then also we might have some questions to wrap up.
Yeah, first, hello to everyone outside there. Normally I say good morning, good afternoon, good night, even when we do these webinars, but now I think you are all located in Switzerland, so time-wise it's no problem. Let me share now the screen. Oops. Yes, okay. That's okay. Yeah. And yes, you see the title of the title of the speech of the presentation is How Behavior Change Happens, Systematic Behavior Change Using the RANAS Approach. Between these 2 parts, there's already a contradiction, as I noted a few minutes ago, because I will not talk about how behavior change happens. No, I will talk about how we can introduce behavior change. That's a difference. Yeah. And you see that I am the representative, as Mathieu said, of RANAS Mosler and of RANAS, and both are a spin-off of EABAC. The RANAS Ltd or GmbH is kind of branch with 4 or 5 PhDs, ex-PhDs of mine. Okay, once more you see the title, and what I will not repeat that. Okay, good. Well, the first question is, why behavior change? Why do we need behavior change? And you see here 2 examples of misused hardware. Here you see mosquito bed nets, yes, but now used for decoration of the backyard. Here you see a solar water cooker used for, I don't know what, but surely not for cooking, yes. And here you see a big rainwater harvest tank. However, if you take a closer look, there's a direct connection to the toilet. Yes, so it's not used for rainwater harvesting. If we, for example, go to an emergency, Haiti after the earthquake, and many organizations wanted to introduce hand washing, but there was no compliance. And by the way, if you speak French, you can understand this here, yes. And then the question arises, how can we motivate people to perform more hand washing at key times? Here, example of shared toilets in Kampala in Uganda. You see, well, it's a bit ugly, I know, but that's reality. On the left side, it's a bit difficult to use on the right side as it should be. And then the question is, how can we motivate people to clean their shared sanitation facilities regularly? This is in peri-urban Harare, Zimbabwe, the promotion of solar water disinfection, but there was only limited or partial or even no uptake. And the question is, how can we motivate people to apply a correct water treatment method? This is an example from a Syrian refugee camp in Lebanon, and you see it's a heavy contamination of the environment. And here is the question, how can we motivate people to dispose their garbage properly? And I want to bring to your attention that I'm talking about how can we motivate, not about how can I inform or even how can I train or even how can I educate people. No, we want to motivate people that they do it out of themselves. Yeah? Geogenic fluoride in ground and surface water. This is an example from Ethiopia. Fluoride, if you have too less fluoride, it's not good. If you have too much fluoride, it's not good. Here it's an example of too much fluoride in ground and surface water, and then you get this dental fluorosis, like you see it here and here, and even this skeletal fluorosis. And you cannot treat it. You need really to do prevention. So how can we motivate people to consume fluoride-free water if they have access to? Well, then the question arises how to introduce behavior change. How to introduce, yes, not how it happens. Well, we supply with information or with whatever, and then it goes to the person's head, and then behavior change happens. But the very first statement is that behavior change starts in the heads of people. What is changing in the heads of people? Well, let's name them as behavioral factors. Behavioral factors are, for example, knowledge, emotions, perceived abilities, and so on. So if you promote a new behavior, then these factors have to change before behavior change happens. Moreover, these factors are different for doers and non-doers. People who, in this example, drink safe water and people who don't drink safe water. They have to be different in these behavioral factors, here shown by factor A minus and D minus. So doers and non-doers differ in their mindsets. What are now the steps that we need to make behavior change happen? First, we need to have an idea about the behavioral factors, yes? Meaning that what we need to have, let me say, a kind of model. Huh? Let me just, just a moment. I have these videos of you. Now it's better. Yes. Okay. So we have first to identify the behavioral factors. Then we want to measure and calculate differences between doers and non-doers. We want to measure factor A, B, C, and D, and want to see where are the differences here between doers and non-doers. Then we select the behavior change techniques accordingly. Accordingly means that we need to select behavior change techniques which tackle factor A and factor D, because B and C are the same for doers and non-doers, and we have not to tackle them. Then design and implement the behavior change techniques. And then we want to monitor the change. We want to monitor the change in behavior but also in the behavioral factors. We want to know where we're successful in changing factor A and factor D. If not, we have to improve our interventions. Good. This you can arrange to a systematic behavior change approach of 4 phases. The first is that we have to identify the potential behavioral and contextual factors. And this we do with a qualitative survey and the RANAS model of behavior change, which I will present you. Then you know the behavioral factors that you have to test and to measure. You measure and determine the behavioral factors. You do this by a quantitative survey and a doer-non-doer analysis. And then you know the factors which you have to change. After that, you have to select the behavior change techniques and design behavior change strategies. This you do by using a catalog of behavior change techniques. Then you know the behavior change techniques you have to apply, and then you implement and evaluate the strategies with a before-after control trial. I will introduce that too. And then you really know what the best strategy is, and you have an effective behavior change. I will now go through step by step of this systematic approach. The very first step is that is important that you define exactly the behavior to be changed. This is very, very essential. So if it is about sanitation is not a behavior, then you have to define it. Okay, it's about building or purchasing toilets. If it is about hand washing, then you need to say, oh, in which situation? After toilet use, before preparing food, before eating food, and so on. If it is about not littering, what is it exactly? Is it separation of litter, or is it using of garbage cans? Or is it, or another topic could be enrolling children in school, or boiling drinking water, or disinfecting somehow with another technique, or fetching water at the safe well, which might then include having safe water transportation and having a safe water storage container. So the very first step is to define the behavior to be changed. Now I hand over to Michael to his experiences with that.
Thank you, Hans.
Yes.
Anybody can hear me, I hope?
I can hear you.
Yes, good.
So I suppose others can hear me too. So as Matthew mentioned previously, we are currently working on 3 different case studies with our NGO partners. And I will give an insight on the one that we currently have in Chad. It's with Mission Évangélique au Chad. So they have developed, you see on the picture, they have developed a solar cooker because there is high problems of deforestation and wood cutting. So the government took action to forbid actually the wood cutting. And they developed a few years ago this solar cooker and sold around 1,000 of them. But the question was how to scale up on people using it. So what we were talking about first was how do we define exactly the behavior? Is it using it or purchasing it? So this had to be defined between us, the organization, and the local partners. And that was not so easy because the goal of the project was also to sell those devices. And so we commonly agreed that the main purpose what was that people would be using them. Maybe next slide. So here you see we use, following RANAS advice, we use a small exercise to define the behavior. So we ask them to disaggregate the behavior into different steps. So there is always a preparatory behavior, a main behavior, and a terminating behavior. So that's an exercise you can do with your behaviors in your projects. So you see on the picture, they went completely wrong. So so here if you can read French, you can understand it. So maybe Hans, can you put the next? Yeah. So here you see that they did not actually really had a good outcome of the exercise, but more or less they were in their selling selling team, trying to argue for the, so there's the argument of economy, of money, of gas, of wood, whatever, and then they wanted to sell the product. So it's not always easy for a team to be focused on the behavior. And you have one thing that is important in this experience is that then they when I explained a little bit more, they were able to describe the behavior, but they were more focused on convincing the user. And you have to be in the shoes of the user to define the behavior. So then once we worked on refining the behavior, so the general behavior was using the solar cooker, but then we discovered that they used the solar cooker for different things. Some used it for cooking the meal, but others would use it, you see the nice croissant in the oven there. Some were using it to other things, like cookies or whatever, even to dry tomatoes or fish. So we had to discuss also the main goal of the project in the end. And one thing that I didn't taste the croissant, unfortunately, but I tried some cookies that were very good. They especially they sell it actually. So what is something important for me here is, because you are all projects practitioners, I would like to say that it's not just a study for itself. It's deeply rooted in the cycle management of a project. And that's what is very, very interesting in the approach. So we defined in the end that the behavior, the main goal of the project was that people use the cooker for the main meal. So that will be the difference between the users and our non-users. So that's how we came through the process of defining this behavior.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to bring you into some activities, yes? Please, if you have any, define the behavior which you want to change in one or two or more projects, yeah? And write that down in the chat. You do not have to speak or nothing like that, but write it down in the chat. I want simply a word or 2 words or 3 words, nothing more. And then after the presentation, I will pick that up and discuss it with you. So please take 1 minute. I'll take the time.